Israel.
And I mean, I think people forget because it's become so
Here's the mic, yeah.
that
So it's a very
if it were not for the federal government, and so the
okay, perfect. Yeah.
I'll begin by greeting everyone. I'm Congresswoman Yvette D. Clark, and I proudly represent New York's 9th Congressional District, which is in Central and South Brooklyn. Before I begin, I want to thank members of the press. I want to thank the Speaker of the City Council, Speaker Adams, for hosting us today. I want to thank all of my colleagues and the community activists who have shown up today. I'm joined here today by Commissioner Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel of the FCC, as well as Commissioner Jeffrey Starks, Congresswoman Grace May, Milton Perez, who was my guest at the President's State of the Union address this year, Donna Lieberman of the Executive Director of the New York Civil Liberties Union, Chris Lewis, who is the CEO at Public Knowledge, Dennis Surratt, the Executive Vice President of the National Urban League, Pam Galpern, of CWA Local 1101. Let me thank everyone for being here this afternoon. Throughout my career, I have been like a hawk on top of issues that impact the people of the 9th District of New York, people across this city and this nation, particularly when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's not just a mere part of my ethos, it's at the heart of it. Because of diversity of our nation, it demands us to encourage the type of representation that can meet the needs of all communities across the nation. Whether we're talking about Brooklyn, New York, Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York, or Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York, or we're talking about West Virginia, we all deserve to have equal access to the fruits of our labor and the things that make life much more fulfilling as Americans. It's my belief that America's true potential lies within its historically underrepresented communities, however, and that's in urban and rural communities who are often left out and left behind. And to support the empowerment of those who have been historically marginalized, we must first narrow the gaps that help contribute to their exclusion from our civil society, particularly in its economy. And that's why we're here today. We're here to save the Affordable Connectivity Program, also known as the ACP. Every single month, more than 1.8 million New York households rely on the ACP to help pay for their internet bill. I was just sharing with Chairwoman Rosenworcel that I think at the heart of it, we all forget that it was a major investment from our federal government that made the internet even possible. Right. And so when you think about the fact that for years we have talked about the digital divide, this program has helped us to close that gap. Truly, the ACP represents one of the best tools to close the digital divide. And let me be clear, it's long been acknowledged that even as the digital industry exploded in this country, America and its people have lived with a digital divide, and with some maintaining reliable internet service and others being denied it for reasons beyond their control. A lack of access to the internet can put essential services completely out of reach, which only compounds inequities and historical injustices. Far too many Americans lack the kind of fast or reliable connection they need for things like work, school, and telehealth. But this can all be fixed. What began as a program to assist people in accessing the internet during the pandemic. The ACP now provides folks with $30 a month for internet service and a one-time stipend for a device. Imagine that. The program has been instrumental in keeping nearly 23 million American households connected across this country. But unfortunately, funds are expected to run out in just over a month.
And that's not right.
Leaving communities from the borough of Brooklyn to rural and middle America without access to affordable and reliable internet. So now it's time that Congress act. We must act.
Yes, right now.
We cannot give up on the progress we have made in closing the digital divide. Our communities, our futures, and our abilities to thrive in the digital age depends on our actions today. This is not about something in the future. This is about now into the future.
Right now.
So we implore the folks at home who may be seeing this today to reach out to your member of Congress and tell them that Washington needs to get their act together right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
So fund the ACP is what we're saying. And we have an opportunity, a small window of opportunity to get that done before this program would lapse. We need to save the ACP. This is a program that has extended a lifeline to communities all across this country and that have made the playing field a little bit more level that we know people rely on in order to live their lives. And increasingly, all of the services that we rely on have migrated to the internet. So it is critical. It is critical for this generation to make sure that no one gets left behind.
No way.
That is a call that cannot be ignored. So let me thank you all for being here today, and it's now my honor and my privilege to bring to the podium a woman who has been a champion for all things internet, broadband, spectrum, you name it. She is on top of it, and she recognizes just how critical this service is to all of our communities across the country, none other than Commissioner and our chairwoman, Jessica Rosenhorst.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Clark and Congresswoman Meg, who are two women who are absolute dynamos in Washington and also extraordinary champions of digital equity. So it's wonderful to be in New York. This is a city who made me. I went to school here. My parents grew up in your district. Yeah. But here's the thing, in this amazing city, we still have a digital divide. So often when we talk about the digital divide in the United States, we think it is just in our rural communities. But here in New York, in Brooklyn, in Queens, everywhere, we saw something during the pandemic. We saw kids sitting outside of libraries with laptops to go online for class.
That ain't right.
We saw people who couldn't keep up with their jobs because they couldn't sit at home and use the internet to keep working.
That ain't right.
And we saw people who couldn't keep up with their telehealth appointments because they just didn't have the bandwidth to stay in touch with their doctors.
Right.
We took a huge digital leap forward, but not everyone was able to get there. So Congress did something about it. Congress worked with the Federal Communications Commission to set up the Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP as we call it. The ACP is the largest broadband affordability effort in our nation's history. 23 million households rely on it. 1.8 million in the state of New York. It's 1 in 6 households nationally. So many people in so many places count on this program to afford broadband. They need it for work, they need it for school, they need it for healthcare, they need it to have anything like a fair shot in life in the 21st century. But here's the thing. The funding that Congress Congress gave us for this program, it's going to come to an end. Think about those 23 million households. Think about how they could be disconnected from the internet. It doesn't have to be that way. We need Congress to continue to fund this program and continue to work to help close the digital divide in rural and urban America. And thank you so much for having me here today. It is such a treat to be back in New York.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored as well to be here with this group talking about ACP. But more than that, I view this really as a rally to save ACP.
Yes.
And the reason why is that I know I feel it. There's a fierce urgency of right now. The time to act, as we've heard from Congresswoman Clark, from the chairwoman, the time to act is right now.
Right now.
1.8 million New Yorkers on essentially free internet. I've traveled across this great nation, over 1 million in Florida, over 1 million in Ohio, hundreds of thousands in my home state of Kansas. It is helping in the Midwest, in the South, in the Northeast, in the West. It's helping to meet Americans wherever they are. These vulnerable households are engaged in the program, enrolled in the program, and these are folks who know what it means to make a dollar go as far as it can.
Yes.
And now we're talking about cutting them off from the program that is helping them.
And that ain't right.
That ain't right. Let me tell you as well, beyond the policy, let's talk about the people.
Talk about it.
I want to talk about Deborah, who I met, who lives in public housing. And she talked about how it's helped her get a small business. It's helped her connect with her family, connect with her home church. I want to talk about Tim, a senior citizen who had never turned on a computer until he was able to get connected with ACP. Or Jerry, who lives in Chicago, who was able to get his telehealth to better his long-term health care needs. These are the real folks who are going to get left behind. The time to act is now. I'm glad to stand shoulder to shoulder with so many here on making sure that we save ACP. Thank you. Yes, I'm Executive Commissioner Jeffrey Starks. Thank you.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and a special thank you to my amazing colleague and good friend, Congresswoman Yvette Clark. And her whole team who worked so hard on putting this event together and bringing us together this afternoon and keeping a light shine on this very important program and issue of ACP. Thank you so much to our commissioners, to Chair Rosenworcel, to Commissioner Starks. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We all remember and know during the COVID-19 pandemic how vital the internet was for so many people. It was crucial for schools, for jobs, and for communities. And as the mom of 2 school-age boys, I saw how important it was firsthand for them to literally be able to still get an education. I want to give a special shout out to our colleague and one of our leaders in Congress, Chairman Jim Clyburn, who for many years, even prior to the pandemic, led a rural broadband task force. And as was said before, many people think that this was only an issue that affected people in our rural communities. But even here in New York, upwards of 30% of people did not have access to the internet prior to the pandemic. In 2021, we worked closely with the FCC to create the $7 billion Emergency Connectivity Fund, basically because we were hearing stories of kids sitting in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant or going to the library if and when it was open just to be able to access internet to do their homework. It ain't right, and that program that we expanded helped millions of students connect to the internet through Wi-Fi hotspots. hotspots, modems, routers, etc. And this included money for internet access right here at our schools and libraries in New York City. And then under President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, we built on that success when Yvette and I and our leaders, Hakeem Jeffries, Speaker Pelosi, and Senator Schumer, helped pass the ACP, which has been a critical lifeline for millions who still need help accessing the internet. But if this program runs out of money, millions in New York and across the country stand to lose this service that they have now come to depend on, and it's unacceptable. It ain't right because many of them would not be able to afford the additional costs and would not be able to stay connected. We have to keep the ACP alive. Access to the internet now is a necessity.
Yes.
It is not a luxury. It is like having electricity.
Yes.
It is like having clean water.
Yes.
It is a necessity. Since this program was launched, Yvette mentioned over 22 million households have signed up to receive the monthly discount it provides. In my district in Queens alone, over 62,000 households get this service now, saving about $27 million a year. And if this program is extended, 36,000 more households would be able to apply. During President Biden's recent State of the Union address, I brought a constituent, I think Yvette did too.
Yeah.
We did not coordinate that. So every State of the Union, we get to bring one special guest to highlight an important issue. And Yvette and I both brought my guests to bring attention to our fight for this program. My constituent, Brittany from Flushing, is a student whose family depends on the ACP. She literally would not be able to afford the internet for herself and also for her two grandparents who live with her to get their telehealth. And so I'm so proud to join Yvette Clark, Congresswoman Clark, in pushing this ACP program. Please ask your Congress members to sign on to Yvette's bill and to make sure that this program is funded. Thank you, Yvette.
You gotta say the bill number.
Greetings.
Greetings.
There are 23 million households. It's going to be upwards of 100 million people. It's not surprising to me, but it's a bit of a shock to see how many people are in need. My name is Milton Perez. I'm a leader in Vocal New York's Homelessness Union. I've been a guest there in Brooklyn maybe 10 years now, the majority in shelter, but I represent the Bronx, Puerto Rico. Get that straight. Thank you, Congresswoman Clark, who invited me to the Capitol building to see, folks behind the scenes. Thank you, everybody here. For basically, fighting together. Because in Vocal New York, we have a saying: when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. So, I like to speak about my experiences as a formerly homeless individual, being in shelter, and as a leader now in the Homelessness Union, which we advocate for homeless people and people the home insecure, housing insecure. While in shelter, and what we're fighting for now, which coincides with ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program at Vocal New York, is we're fighting for vouchers, we're fighting for just basically access to the services that are needed here in the city. While in shelter and while at the hotel during COVID, we needed a Wi-Fi connection to be in contact with family, with doctors and medical people with real serious health conditions, but there was no access to Wi-Fi. So out of those issues, dealing with Vocal New York, we actually have a bill in the state, Wi-Fi for the homeless. Yeah. So people have access while in shelter. We're also fighting for increase in cash assistance. People that don't know, people in shelter only get $45. That ties into ACP because many people not knowing, waiting for that money to come in, were shocked, but you only get $22.50 every 2 weeks planning to get a phone, trying to get access, and it's impossible to get any type of internet access with that small amount of money. It's actually easier to get a phone to get into than get into the internet. As far as vouchers, if you're lucky to get a voucher, you have to get on the internet to apply for housing. The apartment that I'm in, I got through Housing Connect, and I had to go to the subway to apply for housing while I was in the shelter system. So ACP is something that is a necessity, as is being said. One thing I learned in the shelter, people would bypass all the staff and want to speak to the director. The director, in this case, would be President Biden. So I implore the president, build back better. We're building infrastructure as far as internet. We need access to that internet. It's an investment in the future, which we all agree on, but I think we should all agree on that the future is now. Please support ACP. Thank you.
Donna.
Can't get in the middle of a chant. It's a First Amendment issue, right? I'm Donna Lieberman, the director of the New York Civil Liberties Union, which is the ACLU of New York. I want to thank Representative Clark, Representative Meng, our team FCC for being here, and my friends, the advocacy community, particularly vocal. We all have to work on this. Internet is a 21st century necessity. It's essential for getting information, for meeting legal obligations, for accessing services, and connecting with each other, our families, our friends, yes, even the government. But it's a necessity that is too expensive for millions and millions of Americans. And that's why we need Congress to continue the Affordable Connectivity Program and the $30 a month support it provides for the most vulnerable among us, including 1.8 million households in New York. Makes the difference between isolation and the ability to connect, to get health care, find community, find out where to vote, talk to families. We need it. We need it.
Now.
Right now. But in just over 40 days, maybe it's 35 by now, the program will run out of funding unless Congress acts. That ain't right. The ACP is about bridging the digital divide. It's no secret and no surprise who's most impacted. Historically marginalized communities, Black, Latino, Indigenous, rural, and low-income people. And by the way, the digital divide affects Republicans, Democrats,
Say it louder.
voters, non-voters. It just doesn't affect rich people. It's a non-partisan problem. And the solution should be a non-partisan solution.
That's right.
Just extend the ACP now.
Yes.
Right now.
Say it like it is.
And what access to reliable internet does, others have said it, I'll say it too. It helps kids. It helps their parents. It helps kids go to school, parents be involved in schools, help kids do their assignment and get the help that they need. It helps people looking for a job, search and apply for work, and the economic independence and well-being that goes with having a job. We all remember how the internet was absolutely essential in trying to find a life-saving vaccine against the COVID virus. For people with disabilities, it is not just a metaphorical lifeline, it can be an actual lifeline, right? We need the ACP to be extended now.
Yeah.
And with the ACP about to lose funding, we risk deepening the digital divide, causing irreparable harm, and regressing to where things were, to how deep the digital divide and the inequities and inequalities that go with that. Affordable broadband can change people's lives, right? As Milton Perez told us, it's the difference between a life in a shelter and access to a home.
Yes.
Message for Congress. I've said it 4 times, one more won't hurt.
Saying it again.
Time for Congress in a
Yes.
nonpartisan way to extend the Affordable Connectivity Program. That will help 1.8 million New York households. That's about 6 million New Yorkers. It'll help 23 million households across the country. That's about 100 million people.
Come on now.
Save the Affordable Connectivity Program. Now, Congress, get your act together.
Right now.
Stand in the back, because I don't want to block anybody. My name is Chris Lewis. I'm the president and CEO of Public Knowledge. We're a digital rights organization, nonpartisan organization in Washington, D.C. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Congresswoman Clark, for inviting me, because you've been one of our champions for broadband and digital equity for so long. And I'm here representing a broad coalition that's working in Washington to help you get this over the finish line. We've got folks here who aren't at the podium talking, but represent that broad coalition. We've got folks from broadband providers like T-Mobile, Charter, Verizon,
Maxip.
AT&T's over there. We got small broadband providers like Max ISP. We don't always agree with them at Public Knowledge, but on this issue, we're unified. We are unified that the ACP has to be renewed. And so we're grateful for their support, but most importantly in our coalition, we have thousands and thousands of people on the ground in what is a growing digital equity movement. Chair Rosenworcel has visited with them. I saw her at a conference last month. These folks are on the ground helping people get connected and promoting the ACP. They are part of the reason why we have 23 million people in this successful program connected to broadband, because now they can afford it with this fund. But it's going to go away in a month. It's a tragedy if Congress does not step up and follow our leaders here in making sure that we have this fund renewed. We're here at City Hall. Before I took over Public Knowledge, I was in local government working as a school board member. I saw before the pandemic the kids that Chair Rosenworcel was talking about who were at McDonald's and at the public library until it closed because it was their only way to get broadband. And now we don't need to take a step backwards. Now that folks get it, now that we have the ACP, we have to get it done. When you're in local government, people expect that the government fills potholes and shovels the snow and gets it done. We're here at City Hall. We need more members of Congress to be like Congresswoman Clark, Congresswoman Meng, and just get it done.
Get it done.
The ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program Extension Act, that's your bill, Congresswoman, has great bipartisan support, not only from folks here in New York, but members of Congress in rural Pennsylvania, rural Ohio, members of the Senate on the left and the right. So it's time for it to come for a vote. And we're here to do everything we can to support you, Congresswoman Clark, and we got to get this done. So thank you for having me.
Dennis. Big up hand. Dennis.
When we fight, we win.
We win.
Right, good afternoon. My name is Dennis Surratt. Thank you very much. I am with the National Urban League, Executive Vice President of the National Urban League. Let me start by saying, say it with me, everybody. Fund the bill.
Fund the bill.
Fund the bill.
Fund the bill.
Do it right now.
Do it right now.
All right. This, for us, is a civil rights issue. The National Urban League, for over 113 years, 114 years, has fought for equity when it comes to housing, equity when it comes to financial literacy, equity in jobs, job opportunities in the policy space, job opportunities for working poor and the like. This for us becomes just what this song says, the civil rights issue of the 21st century. There is very little work that we're going to be able to do without connectivity. There's very little work that we're going to be able to do when we're connecting to those that qualify, which in many ways are 200% below the federal poverty level. Right? That ain't right. So we have to step up and believe that if we're going to have equity in this country on any level, we're going to have to support programs like ACP, support Yvette Clarke, support our local congressmen, support New York. There are 1.8 million for households here in New York City, but there and 23, and we've heard 23 million across the country, but we know there are some 48 million that are eligible. But that means that there are 48 million that are living below poverty level. There are 24 million people that are stepping outside of the system and struggling to make ends meet. This is the population that we serve. This is the population that we fight for. This is the population that will continue to do all that we can to make sure that Congress and the President and all know that ACP must continue. Sign the bill.
Sign the bill!
You don't say the bill number.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Pam Galpern. I'm a field technician at Verizon and a shop steward in CWA Local 1101. And for the past 15 to 17 years, I've helped build the fiber network here throughout Manhattan. We've worked in a lot of these buildings, putting fiber, putting FiOS in, and getting folks connected. And we all know how important that is in today's world.
Yes.
We know how dependent kids, families, we all are on having high-speed internet at home. And it's not right that so many of our neighbors are cut off from that essential service because they can't afford it.
And that's not right.
I'm proud that my job helps me play a role in getting those folks connected. And it's the Affordable Connectivity Act that has played such a crucial role in getting so many families connected to the network that we build. But we can only shrink that digital divide if families can actually afford the service. Without help, we all know high-speed internet costs too much for most low-income families to pay for. But right now, the Affordable Connectivity Program that we've heard so much about, which is supporting the 1.8 million households in New York that we've talked about, is at risk. And it will mean cutting off a lifeline for those families, those job seekers, those kids, if it isn't extended. But the Affordable Connectivity Program means something else as well. It means good union jobs for people like myself and my coworkers who build and maintain the network. We're really proud of the work that we do to provide this high quality service to people. But what does it mean if people can't afford to connect or to maintain that service? There's a major broadband build getting underway across the country, thanks to funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. With my colleague Nick Ho from Local 1104, we co-chair a committee of New York State Verizon technicians throughout the state who are going to be part of helping make sure that that build gets to the people who need it, helping build out high-speed internet to people right now who don't have access to it. It would be such a tragedy if in this moment, right before we embark on this massive build across the country, we cut off the lifeline for people who will have access to it, who have not had access to high-speed internet. We cut off that lifeline if the ACP funding doesn't get extended.
That ain't right.
So it's really a common sense move to extend funding for ACP. It's good for families, it's good for businesses, it's good for consumers, and it's good for maintaining good union jobs throughout our communities. So I want to thank Congresswoman Clarke, Congresswoman Bang, everybody else for allowing us to speak to that additional facet of the ACP. And I really hope that your colleagues in Congress and the Senate join you in pushing to make sure that the funding gets extended.
Well, as you can see, we are very passionate about the Affordable Connectivity Program. It is critical that Congress act immediately to serve the people of this country by providing this, extending this program so that, again, we are closing the digital divide that has been a part of, unfortunately, our society since the inception of the internet. we know that the American people are now at a point where this is no longer a luxury.
Right.
This is a necessity. Having said that, I'm going to open up to our press for any questions you may have.
If you say this is a bipartisan, you get bipartisan support, but what are the barriers so far?
Right now, we need a vehicle because it's time. Time is the issue. We need a vehicle, and we have one coming up where we can extend an appropriation for this program. We've made it known to all the powers that be that the next thing moving, we call it a minibus. We want to see the Affordable Connectivity Program, the ACP, attached to that funding mechanism.
So, what is the bill number and how much the bill will cost?
Well, I'm not certain of the bill number right now because we're just trying to make sure that it's appropriated in the upcoming funding, and we're asking for $8 billion, which is chump change in federal government language. Any other questions? Well, then I want to thank you all once again. I want to thank the advocates. I want to thank all of the stakeholders who came out today. Please call your Congress member and make sure they're on my bill and make sure that they're pressing to make this a part of our next funding mechanism. Thank you.
Fund ACP, digital equity.
Fund ACP, digital equity. Fund ACP, digital equity. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. What do we want?
That would be great.
Justice. What do we want?
We want justice and we want it right now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
We want it
Now.
We don't get it.
Shut it down.
We don't get it.
Shut it down.
We don't get it.
Shut it down.
Fund ACP, digital equity.
Thank you so much.
for coming.
You're gonna get it done.
Yeah, thank you.